Hello, all. Welcome to India Employer Forum's flagship digital event where we bring in an industry expert and have a conversation and then gain insights. So, this time we have actually come up with an interesting topic, India at 100, reshaping the talent hunt. Before we get on to the topic part, India Employee Forum is a non-profit community site and which is actually focused on three key areas: employment, employability, and ease of doing business. Employment is all about talent and identifying the talent and providing the job opportunities. Employability is all about skill building. Ease of doing business is adhering to the compliances and all the rules of the laws of the game in the country. Now, all the three areas India Employee Forum focuses on, discusses, and then actually contributes for its actually changing the dynamics. Now, TeamLease is the knowledge partner for India Employer Forum, and that's how now we are associated with it. And for this flagship event, we now have the chief guest as Mr. Sanjay, Dhar, Chief General Manager HR and LnD of Steel Authority of India Limited. Giving a warm welcome to him. Straight away, we'll get on to the session. We would like to take your self-introduction before we get on to the topic discussion.
Thank you, Subbu. It's a pleasure being here and it's an honor being here and being part of a conversation which is talking about building India, which is talking about making a more competitive India. And that's something that resonates with me as a member of SAIL, Steel Authority of India Limited. Okay, something about my organization and myself and why I'm still here. Uh, SAIL is the flagship steelmaker of the country. I mean, we take pride in the fact that we are nation builders. There's a saying that there's a little bit of sale in everybody's life, and not only in terms of the reach of our products, but also in terms of how they are pivotal to the growth and development of the country, both in terms of infrastructure or the current thrust on Atmanirbhar Bharat. So where we have a large contribution to play. Uh, the other part is changing the social fabric of the country in terms of developing the nation through our outreach programs, through CSR and other things. Every steel plant is a town with more than 5 lakh people. So, and that's sustained by us. So when we have so many steel plants. So with that kind of, mission that the organization has, it is natural that people with a passion towards developing the nation get drawn in and stay there. So now let me share something about myself. I did my earlier schooling in Kashmir and CMS Tandul Disco School, and then did my engineering from NIT Jamshedpur, then my MBA from BIT Mesra. I joined SAIL in 1993 in one of the steel plants at Bokaro, which is now in Jharkhand, then it was in Bihar. And from there, I moved to the corporate LnD center, MTI, which is located at Ranchi, which again was built way back in 1962 as the center for developing the future leaders for steel industry. At that point of time, they were not looking at a company, they were looking at the whole industry. And I've been there since then, except for a 1 year hiatus to Bhilai Steel Plant, which is again a flagship plant of SAIL. In fact, all Indian rails run on, trains run on Bhilai Steel Plant rails. So just to give you some perspective on the importance of our plants. I was head of LnD and B Business Excellence at Bhilai Steel Plant. Then I moved back to the corporate role at MTA, which is not only the apex learning center of SAIL, but also the coordinating agency for all LnD interventions across the company, because a lot of things are happening at the unit levels also. In terms of what the company is doing for developing the workforce, both internal and external, again, something that you may not, a lot of people may not realize it. We invest a lot in our people in terms of capability development. We also invest a lot in our partners, the contract workers and all that who are working on projects in terms of their capability development, whether it's in terms of skill development, whether it's in terms of giving them certifications in terms of recognition of prior learning and all that. So again, in terms of the skill building thing, and we are also at a talent pool for the whole industry. I mean, a lot of our people, you will find them spread across the company. So from that perspective, we are also one of the major skill drivers of the steel industry. So I think that is in brief about SAIL and myself in the context of today's conversation. So looking forward to interacting with you, Suru.
Thank you so much, Sanjay. In fact, how can the manufacturing sail without sail? That's the tagline that I can actually that comes to my mind. And I'm sure with your rich experience spread across the domains within the HR, plant and operations, and as well as the complete experience in the LnD, I'm sure we are blessed to have you for as a speaker to our particular event. Thanks once again for accepting our invite to join us, Sanjay. Now, okay, so we'll get on to the topic part, the interesting one, what we have today, which is that India at 100 and the reshaping the talent hunt. Uh, Very recently, we know that we have actually overtaken Japan in terms of the GDP. So India has now become the formally announced as a fourth GDP. While that's actually a good economic indicator, progressive indicator, but in reality, what is the other one that is pinching us? Precisely the GDP, the GDP, which is correlated to the per capita income. While in GDP, we are happy that okay, we have actually come to this particular position. The per capita income, we are nowhere near to it. We are still over and above 100 plus position across globally. If you want to compare even Japan, our per capita in Japan is like 12 times better. So that is actually the major challenge that is actually seen. And it's actually a tricky word, right? So how do we increase the per capita? Then obviously the business comes and says that, okay, the productivity has to get increased. How does the productivity? Then it actually boils down to the talent that we have. Now, over the period in the last 80 years after independence, okay, things have changed, but then we still have another about 22 years to go in terms of okay, how we actually want to target for India at 100. Now, therefore, the crux word that actually comes in is productivity. So let me start the first question with the productivity level, Sanjay. So we know that in a manufacturing plant, the shop floor is actually being a kind of a pivotal for any kind of a growth that actually happens over the productivity actually starts from there. Uh, in your experience and with your LND positioning, how this productivity is actually changed over the years and what kind of a thing that is actually has to be looked upon in the coming years.
Okay, you see, when you look at productivity, it is a function of technology and capability and the synergy between them. So none of them in isolation will do anything. So the challenge is how do we work on capability and how do we work on technology and then the capability to leverage the new technology. So that applies to every new technology. So what we have seen is when it comes to capability and application of technology, people have to have a good understanding of why something has to be done in a particular manner. So that is the know why part of it. That is at the root of innovation. That is at the root of finding the next productivity gain. But in terms of the process efficiency and actually doing it and not just being a cognitive experience, actually boiling it down to skills, you need to know the how to do it and what to do at what time. So when we are looking at capability development from the perspective of blending technology and human capital, uh, we are looking at interventions which factor in the know-how and know-why in a seamless manner. So what has worked in our context is that while a lot of knowledge, content-driven knowledge can be digitalized and you can work on digital. That's one trend that is happening in capability development. That even YouTube is becoming a very powerful tool for developing people. So that's one aspect. The other aspect is how do you get practical insights for people, which actually boil down to productivity. So we have seen that approach which involves blending structured formal inputs which explain the technology and the why of it, along with some relatively unstructured peer learning or dynamic dialogues with experts, uh, which explains the how and the what and what doesn't work and in what context it works, what are the nuances, uh, in a free-flowing discussion, which is connected in a larger context. Again, the discussion can go haywire, so you have to provide a context of a specific business problem or a production problem or a manufacturing problem. So what we have done is when you design a series of workshops, giving them a fulcrum around a business problem, and then tell the expert, fine, we just don't want general knowledge. We want knowledge uh, germane to that problem. Give us the inputs. And then we tell people, no, we don't want just to be you to be just more informed. Apply that additional knowledge and skill to the problem at hand. Figure out what you need to do, learn from the masters, and then figure out what you want to try out. So blending these elements together actually makes the learning useful. And in fact, that is the thrust that we are trying to give to the academia also, that this is the way you should actually train people so that they are industry ready. So one problem we face with a lot of people is they are not industry ready. So which is one aspect of embedding the knowledge into the workflow. The second aspect of embedding the knowledge and enhancing productivity is you have to understand that yes, in any population, there will be some people who can absorb much more and innovate much more. Uh, and there'll always be a relatively small proportion, and there will be people who really have to know the basics. Now, those big innovators can't also work in isolation, because for them the problem is there's a lot of backup donkey's work to be done, which they might not be very keen on. But that work is important. So what we need to do is, in terms of capability profiling, we need to have a pyramid. For every major expert, we need to have 4 or 5 people who understand the basics well enough to be able to connect to him. Otherwise, he gets disconnected. So once you get that pyramid, there are some people who practically everybody knows the basics. There are some people who are better at driving these incremental innovations, and then there are those people, the mavericks, the mad geniuses who can break the mold and try something new. But ultimately, it has to be operationalized. So somebody down the line. So the translation of basic know-how into problems and articulation of problems, and the translation of brilliant insights into operational mechanisms. So you need to have this pyramid in your workplace. So if you really need productivity, you need a stable pyramid of competence. So that's one aspect. You need productivity, you need a learning and development process which incorporates the theoretical with the practical, the structured with the unstructured, uh, the periodic trainings, that we give with the emergent trainings. There is a problem, how do you solve it right now? So if you create an ecosystem that takes care of all these things, uh, then I guess we will really start getting those productivity gains. That will lead to the kind of growth that we need to really develop our per capita income, because we need more than 10% growth to really reach those levels of per capita income. And we will get GDP growth, but we need a much higher GDP growth rate to reach that. So I think that's roughly what I would like to get started with at this point of time. And when we are looking at building that ecosystem for that, just as an afterthought, uh, how do you deliver this? So again, it's a very interesting thing. If you rely purely on external agencies, they won't know your context. If you try to grow in-house everything, after some time you get inbred. And we have faced that in our organization in the past. We are evolving into a more collaborative system where we collaborate with a lot with academia. We collaborate a lot with the industry forums for specific skills. Less like we are collaborating with NASCOM for the IT skills. Uh, so they bring in a fresh perspective, a broader perspective, but contextualizing it and customizing it to our requirement, we need to develop our own internal resources to drive that capability development. So again, that's another thrust that is very important for us. Uh, Build your in-house capability, but don't isolate yourself. Have a basic level of capability in-house where you are reasonably, independent, but then reach out and work independently. So that's the broad thing that I wanted to say.
No, no, thank you for sir. I think the way you have actually articulated is much helpful. If you have to sum up, you get the more productivity, get the right skill building done, and for which, okay, how do you actually then the know-how of it, the application-based aspect of then the learning through and the pyramid model, what you said was like absolutely useful. I think when somebody actually follows this, the productivity output is actually because not many organizations actually focus on this. And another insight that you actually gave is on the academia, how they actually look at. Because people come in, that's a common challenge. With whoever we speak, oh, people are there, but I'm not getting the right people for me. So the industry ready is something that, okay, when it is actually starts from the academia, I think that also is directly proportional to the productivity and how people actually fast skill, upskill themselves within the, because what you get from academia and then what you come in and have an exposure has to get complemented with the other things. Great articulation, Sanjay. Thanks for it. Now, when we speak about this productivity, we always think that, okay, the chunk of the people actually in the manufacturing shop floor, etc. I have a very unique question. The moment whenever I say manufacturing, it's like male dominated. It's like, okay, you just say a particular profession and then the people associate with some kind of a people. Here, somewhere or the other, the bias actually comes, or maybe it's been the reality, I'm not sure, but I actually want to check with you. Uh, is it still the male dominated one? How's the diversity actually shaping up over there? Because what we also get to know is when female are more in because the productivity is actually that we have seen certain industries actually picking up female employees, saying that, okay, yeah, the productivity is actually it's going up high. How do you actually find that in manufacturing, Sanjay? That's specifically the diversity point, which is correlated from the productivity to the now to the spread across gender.
Very interesting question, and we are going through this transition now. What we have to understand is uh, the basic demographics of the country demands that we open up more sectors to women because they are educated now. More of them are educated, more of them are skilled, more of them are aspirational, and they are knocking at our doors. So to say that, okay, you just limit yourself to a particular niche is not fair for the productivity of the nation. You're, actually, losing productivity of the nation as a whole. And it's not good for the industry. The industry needs talent, so it can be of any gender. And nowadays, it's not just about engineering students. There are a lot of ITI and diploma holders. There are so many girls doing ITI and diploma. So they will join the workforce. And they've grown up in an environment where they don't really feel many inhibitions. They are quite ready for the industry. Now the challenge is what happens when they enter the industry. They have certain preferences and people nudge them towards certain industries. They normally are nudged away from core and heavy industries like steel. But we get girls. We still have more than 8% of a manpower who's women, and we are aspiring to increase it to more than 16, 17%. Going forward, maybe even 25%, but reasonably we are trying to ramp it up. Uh, so in terms of hiring practices, trust me, we sensitize our boards and everything uh, to stay open and practically have a positive bias for women candidates because they made it so far. Give them the benefit of the doubt. Don't project your doubts about whether they will survive the industry on them. This is one major problem that a lot of recruiters have. I
Mm.
mean, you have doubts. No, you give them a try. Let them figure out. A lot of our gender biases, subconscious biases get projected as protection. We are not protecting them. We are debarring them. So that's one sensitivity in terms of recruitment that we are trying to do. The other aspect is we are also trying to make our own workplace much more conducive and an equal opportunity uh, uh, workplace. So, but history has its issues. So, traditionally there have been people, there are very few women. So, and people normally tend to gravitate towards sending them towards what they consider to be soft jobs. What we are trying to do is we are trying to drive in a major cultural shift in the organization. How we are doing it is we've taken a specific intervention for developing women leaders in our organization. And it's not just a leadership about doing a program. It's a complete journey where not only do they undertake different projects, they undertake mentor some people, they do cascading workshops, they go out into the fields and uh, engage other people into first developing that self-belief that you are not only up to the mark, you have come across a much steeper gradient, so you are actually a shade better, and go out into the field. And we have this process of celebrating women in the field. So, they are role models. They are talked about everywhere, and not just to women. They are talked about everywhere to all the executives as role models for all employees, not just women. It's not tokenism for a particular this thing. Uh, so what we are doing is we are creating a community of women leaders who are inspiring other people to aspire more, to get more engaged, to go out into the field and show their mark. So, so that's in terms of empowering the women to believe in themselves and have greater aspirations. In terms of enabling them, which is again very important for empowering them, we are also pushing a lot of women into frontline field roles. I have a coke oven battery. It's considered to be okay, tough job. I have women working there. I have a steel melting shop. We are talking about handling metal. We have women there. I have a rolling mill where there is. We are talking about dispatch, and you are handling a lot of external interfaces also. We have women there, and these women are celebrated. Going forward, the industry is also looking at trying to get some operating units sufficiently manned, where we'll say one fine morning, out of our 8 batteries, we may have one battery which is okay, all managed by women. Uh, and the beautiful part is, because they have a greater hunger to prove themselves, uh, when a unit is left in their charge, they tend to do even better. Uh, and that's what we thrive on. So that's one aspect of helping them reach out, because everybody is competing for space and attention and that kind of thing. The other part is addressing the approach of the men, the others, so that they create an enabling ecosystem in terms of sensitizing them to treat women as equal professionals, demand equal professional standards from them, put them in the field and not be pseudo protective. Uh, so that kind of sensitivity also. Posh and all that is very routine. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the fundamental shift about when I see a woman executive or a worker coming in my office, do I start making concessions for her as a woman and in my calibration, or do I say no, you're a professional, you are held to the same standards as everybody else? So developing people to be assertive and at the same time be respectful, all those things. So those things are the other thing that we are trying to do within our organization, and it happens especially in a large industry like us. And we have a whole gamut. We practically run a universe. We have hospitals under us. We have townships under us. We have and a steel plant. Now, many a times what happens is there is this macho culture that somebody is working in the steel plant is actually working in a very tough condition, critical, this, that. And, women are in working in softer jobs and all that. So many a times we also have to sensitize people about the criticality or the risks involved in other jobs, which they traditionally may not feel are tough. So, when we have some interfaces workshops and I tell people, okay, fine. Yeah, people from works, she's from steel melting shop, and there's somebody from a hospital, OT, in an operation theater, the life is on the line. So do you
Yeah.
think it's less risky than a steel melting shop where, okay, you're talking about spillage? Both places have systems in place. Both places have risk mitigation strategies and technology in place. But at the end of the day, it depends on that one person's alertness and everything. So please appreciate nuances of jobs, appreciate the risks of different jobs, appreciate the value of different jobs. So from that perspective, when we are valuing a lot of the jobs where maybe women are much more in numbers, the concentration is much more. That is also helping us make it a much more women-friendly workplace. And as I said, when more and more people get visible in the field, their presence gets normalized, and after some time,
It becomes a
I'll tell you
normal.
one of my managing directors, director in charge of Belai Steel Plant, Mr. Anirban Das Gupta. I'll quote him. He said, some of my best boys are girls. So, so when that becomes, the gender is not an issue. We are trying to
Mm.
drive it. I think that's what we are going to do go forward. That's the way to go forward.
Yeah, in fact, my question was actually, I was generally checking out whether is it actually happening, but the way you actually took it, it's like, okay, things are changing. See, I just couldn't imagine if somebody says me a statement that, okay, three members in a steel melting shop, immediately I would have assumed that, okay, that's a boy, that's a man. But then when you say that, okay, female members are working over there, actually that's, I think it's and then India is changing. See, today, I've experienced this with a lot of EV industries, even the bus pilots. So they don't call drivers, they call it as a bus pilots, the EV vehicles.
Yeah.
They're actually preferring female members. So the way manufacturing, I think this is really encouraging. I think the diversity part, obviously it is clubbed with the productivity, which is actually getting onto the right direction for us to actually to improve. Now, Sanjay, just actually want to check. Now, while these are completely very innovative, a foundational question. See, and this word is not was not there about 30, 40 years before. When you get a job, you will be so more loyal in the sense, okay, you know you have struggled for it and you've been will be associated for say 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. Now, one of the aspect, forget about 3, 4 years, is something that is actually coming up, and this word is very recent word, I would say. It's called as the infant attrition.
Yeah.
So when we talk about infant attrition, see, we are actually more worried about the productivity because productivity help us to do better, and that will actually has a direct cascade to the economic impact. Now, for getting the productivity, we spend a lot of time for identifying the right talent, and we bring the talent here. And the first month, or maybe the first 3 months, when the talent moves out, and this ratio is alarmingly increasing, and across industries. Uh, your insights on this particular aspect, are you also witnessing it? Are you also, or is there any kind of a recommendation that you can actually provide so that to avoid on this, Sanjay?
Yes, we have faced this issue. Uh, and interestingly, we get a very interesting mix in public sector. That's a very interesting trend that I've noticed. Uh, when we advertise on, normally we were taking through gate, but now we will be advertising also for management trainees. We get a mix of people who are freshers, and we also some people who have had some industry experience. They work somewhere for 1 year, 2 years, so on, and then they apply for us. We have seen this infant attrition business happening mostly with the freshers, people who are just fresh out of college, first job. Uh, and when we tried to, make sense of it, what we realized was it's not just one company or two companies. I think industry itself has not been able to uh, communicate enough to the student community and give them a realistic picture about what industrial life is like. I think many a times a lot of the people who go to campus and paint certain pictures about what industrial life is like tend to distort perceptions.
Yeah.
So what happens is all that hype, and they walk in and then they say, "Oh, this is more grounded."
Mm,
And but we have heard about the PPTs of the pre-placement and all that. The other place must be more attractive.
mm,
So what happens is because they don't have enough information about what
mm.
the real industrial environment is like, their calibration goes wrong, and they tend to jump at the next big thing, which they don't know. I'll tell you one more thing, because we have seen people coming back on the rebound and coming back to 1 year. After some time, they'll realize that it was not a problem with this particular company or that particular company. It was a problem with their perception about what industrial life is like.
Uh,
Uh,
Correct, correct, correct.
so I think that was
Major.
one aspect that we looked at. So we need to maybe reach out more to the student community and give them a more humane, nuanced, practical insight on what industrial life is like, uh, and not really gloss over a lot of things, and not really overpromise or Photoshop life in the industry. Uh, so that's one thing that we have seen. The other part that we have, so yes, some degree of even pre-placement connect and some conversation and all that. We have tried that with our management trainees, and that has helped quite a lot. Clarifying their doubts and all those things, so they get more comfortable when they come in, and a lot of their notions are cleared before they come. The second aspect that we need to really look at, and we have found it quite useful for us, is take your time to ease people in. Uh, have a relatively longer induction. Like for our management trainees, we have a 1 year induction program. which basically starts with the company orientation, and then we send them to a unit, and then again they get oriented to the unit. Then we send them, start moving them around the different departments. So, gradually they get absorbed into the milieu of the organization. As they are picking up skills, they are picking up generic skills, we are giving them inputs, management, development, technical skills, and all that. But the larger issue is they are getting absorbed into the ecosystem of the organization. So when we start getting them to be functional, they are ready. They are absorbed. They know what things are. They don't have. So I think induction programs, they are designed the way they are, interface matters quite a lot. It's like what we have seen is, for a lot of cases, getting the previous batches of manage. We are kind of an academy company in the sense that we include batches, and then that's how we go about. We have very little lateral recruit. So we'll call in the previous batch and ask them to share their experiences, and we make buddies of them. So these things actually help people to uh, make sense, and get a realistic understanding of what works, what does not work. So from that perspective, I think we need to be more honest. We need to be more realistic, and we need to be more compassionate, because what happens many a times is these people come up with all kinds of expectations, and we many a times as seniors tend to react that what are these brats doing? So we tend to see them as brats. That's another generation shift that we need to understand. This is a generation which has been used to getting their way. They have not really had to struggle for things. So to suddenly expect them to fall in line uh, is not really realistic. So I
That's
think
true.
from the company's perspective also, we need to give them some play, some leeway to vent out and realize for themselves what things are. So from that perspective, have patience. So to reduce attrition, I think what one you need is honesty. The second is more engagement. And the third is patience. So if we can keep these things, I think we have seen in our experience,
We can
it
control.
helps quite a lot.
No, I think the way you actually highlighted about, okay, the people coming up with specifically the first line, the friend of the first timers coming from an academia, they do not visualize, okay, what is actually there in industry. I think that is something which is actually a very different perspective, because lot, in fact, I was talking to a professor, a Bangalore-based professor. He was actually highlighting that, okay, why people do not take civil and mechanical, because people are visualizing too much visualizing. Stating that, okay, fine, I have to stand in hot sun, I have to wear a helmet, I have to stand with this, I have to oversee. Whereas when you pick up computer science, they actually get down to you sit in an AC room, you codify, and you are called as a software engineer. So, whereas a civil engineer is never called as a civil engineer in the beginning of the career, whereas a software is software professional. So, he was actually giving me different this perspective, and now I can correlate and join the dots here, how this is also impacting people's visualization towards the industry. Great. I think this should be a message for academias, so that they actually take care of this. And the way how you actually touched upon the other points also very interesting, Sanjay. How things actually be arrested, what do they have to be given, how they have to be coached in the first 90 days as soon as they join. It's brilliant. Okay. Now, I have one last question, Sanjay. With uh, the buzzword is all about in manufacturing is the industry 4.2 and IoT, robotics, automation. Now, with all this coming up, I just want to correlate this technological advancement with skill building. Maybe what would be your advice when these technological advancements are happening? What would you suggest for the people who actually aspire to get into on the skill building? What they have to do, how they have to be actually looked upon? Your
Yeah, yeah.
recommendations, Sanjay.
Okay, I'll start from the business problem and then tell you, come down to the skill aspect of it, because that's
Yeah,
when
yeah.
it makes more sense. You see, Industry 4, this transition is not actually one seamless wave that is happening in organizations. What is happening in industry is there are multi-pronged initiatives happening on different fronts. Whatever is the nearest or most sensitive to them, they will apply that technology and figure out uh, how to take the next leap. And all these prongs are then finally converging and connecting into some grand strategy. And then the synergy starts. Then the real transformation really starts. Uh, and again, what is happening is even within our own organization, forget about same industry, same with industry. We are at different levels of preparedness in different operating units. even within different operating units, so different sets of people are at different levels of preparedness. Like we have automation level 1, 2, 3, 4, we have those things. So some units are at automation level 1, some people are level 2, uh, some people have modernized units, so they have a lot of automation already in place. In some shops, you even have to do the basic thermostarization and things like that. So what happens is, when we are trying to evolve from a traditional industry which relies on, let's say, in our case, mechanical, electrical, metallurgy, that kind of stuff, into something that is driven purely by, IT and those kind of technologies, uh, getting into cyber physical systems. What we do is we have figured out that until we start making sense of the whole big beer called Industry 4, let us do whatever we can understand. So you start off with a lot of proof of concept. Somebody tries something with IoT, somebody tries something with data analytics, somebody tries something with AI, AI/ML and all that. And then they figure out, boss, these two are connecting, let's use both. So we take a problem, figure out what are those 3 or 4 technologies which are relevant to it, and take up projects. And then we start scaling them up, or replicating them across the different things. So you have a lot of incubators going on in the industry, uh, which create a ferment, some degree of enthusiasm about the process, and some vague understanding of, okay, what Industry 4 is all about, and some skill building that happens as part of the process. The project demands a particular skill, so they start doing a certain skill. So that's one. Then after some time, the organization start realizing that there's chaos. We need to have some control and process, and uh, we need to have a strategy which synergizes. So that's when the big consultants and the technology providers and all that come in, and they give us company-wide solutions. So again, when they say we want to get company-wide solution, they say we need a whole lot of data scientists, we need a lot of data engineers, uh, and then suddenly we realize, okay, we don't have enough. Uh, so that kind of things happens. So both these approaches give rise to certain skill sets that are required, and certain skill sets in critical domain. And then when we do the projects, we also realize something very funny happening, uh, especially when the other people come in. The pure data scientists don't know what to do with their knowledge in our context, and our people uh, can define their problem in their paradigm. So we understood we need to develop in-house people who know the domain and complement their skill with the digital skills. So that's the challenge that comes up to us. Uh, and that is a more sustainable method than trying to hire a lot of people from the digital skills. Uh, because the context is the domain. So,
Correct. People
so
who actually knows the internal system well, they
yeah.
can actually identify the challenge better than compared to
Exactly.
somebody.
Because otherwise, what happens is I have a coffin, I want to find a corpse. But right
Uh,
now, I have a corpse, I want to figure out what coffin will fit in. So that way, it works much better. So what we are doing is, in our company, and this is happening in most industry. You have tier one, whole lot of projects, small projects, and there again, what happens is niche players, small startups, small companies which have developed small solutions, they come in very handy as collaborators. So that ecosystem comes in very handy, and that skill set comes in handy. And then we have the track two, where we have the major consultants coming in and talking about revolutionizing major processes, where the big skill comes in. And again, we have followed the same pyramid wala concept in that. So what we have done is, we understand that we need fertile ground for all those projects to really take root and be operationalized efficiently. Uh, so we tied up with the IITs, we tied up with FSP and all that, to build a first layer of digital literacy across the board, irrespective of your role. Then within that, we try to find out who are those people who have the smarts and the orientation for taking on more specialized roles. We are trying to develop that level of cadre for people uh, to take on projects. And then there are senior level people who have to understand overall strategy and enough of the technology to be able to, really embed it. So from that perspective, digital skills have become one of those core skills for any function. So in addition to your function, digital skills are something that are required for everybody. And within that, domain specific, application specific, some people will develop into higher order skills. So that is what we are doing right now in terms of working on Industry 4. the skilling perspective, the capability
Yes.
perspective. There are a lot of application part, but I will not really discuss about that at this point of time, considering the time. Yeah.
Great. In fact, some of the in-house and then building up and then having a structure to actually finding out a solution, and then actually at the same time you actually give an opportunity to upskill people. I think it's a fantastic, great platform, because when things change in dynamic environment, because 10 years back nobody would have thought that okay, industry 4.0 was a word. Some automation has been there, but then now things are drastically changing. So then your problems are also different, for which you need more of in-house people to actually come up with it, and they require a skill building. Great points, Sanjay. I think all the points that you spoke, starting from the productivity part, and then how it is actually related, and how the diversity part, and how they are actually coming in, and then which is also helping us to actually control on the infant attrition with some of the initiatives that you take. And with the recent automations and with the actual skill building that is required for it, and you built a custom build. I think these are all great insights. People who listen will have more understanding of this. I think it was great having you, Sanjay. Thanks for the time that you have dedicated and given to us.
My pleasure.
Looking forward for another session, maybe in a physical event or a digital event in the future. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for sharing your perspective, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to share our perspective.